«Мама, это была последняя капля. Для меня точно. А для тебя как сама выберешь?» В гневе закричала я на родную мать. «Пойми, ты не на помойке живешь, чтобы так себя вести». Мама сидела на кухне, втянув голову в плечи. Ответить ей было абсолютно нечего. И так чуть ли не каждую неделю мама дает нам с мужем Владом обещание, что накрепко завяжет с пагубной привычкой. Но сегодня мы с супругом твердо решили поставить матери ультиматум. От ее выбора зависит дальнейшая судьба в прямом смысле этого слова. Мама набрала побольше воздуха в легкие и тихо прошелестела одними губами. «Тише, Олеся, маму разбудишь». Саша, мой старший брат, приложил палец к губам. «Ты же знаешь, что ее лучше не будить. Так что снимай пальто, мой руки и иди обедать. Сегодня нам повезло. Тетя Маша из второй комнаты гречкой и гуляшом угостила. Я буквально затанцевала от радости. Гречка с гуляшом. Это же поистине царское блюдо. Для многих оно кажется обыденным и даже банальным. Но я в детстве жареной картошечке радовалась. А если еще стакан молока найдется, то вообще Новый год. Я тихо вымыла руки и спросила Сашку. «Сашок, а ты сам-то обедал?» «Я не хочу», — отвел глаза брат. К другу заходил, там бутербродами перекусил. Я не удивлюсь, что Сашка кривит душой. Никуда он не заходил и никаких бутербродов не ел. Это он так меня бережет. Хочет, чтобы я как следует поела. А то у нас и так чуть ли не трехразовое питание. Понедельник, среда, пятница. Мама начала пить горькую ровно 1,5 года назад, когда не стало нашего отца. Он на вахте работал. Изо всех сил длинный рубль зарабатывал, чтобы наконец-таки выдернуть наше семейство из ненавистной коммунальной квартиры. Однажды мама вернулась с работы бледная, растрепанная, со странным выражением на лице. За ней тянулся удушливый шлейф противного запаха. Я чуть позже узнала, что он означает. До этого в нашем доме к горячительным напиткам никто не притрагивался. Отец это дело на дух не переносил. Мама относилась к ним спокойно, как будто и нет в мире подобной продукции. Позвонили с нефтевышки, где папа работал. Мама села на кровати и закрыла лицо ладонями. У них там какая-то ситуация произошла, вся бригада того. Того означало, что мы с Сашкой в один миг остались без отца. Руководство вышки выделило маме какие-то деньги в качестве компенсации. Та их потратила на свое усмотрение. Просто вылила в топку. Это она так траур держала. Я не осуждаю маму. Неизвестно, как я бы повела себя на ее, не дай бог, месте. Но когда это превратилось в систему, мама потеряла престижную работу главного бухгалтера. Она перешла все границы. Сашка заканчивал школу. Я на 2 года его младше. Соседи от всей души жалели нас. Особенно тетя Маша. «Олеся, зайди ко мне, дочка. Я борща наварила, макароны по-флотски. Ты у меня покушай. А еще брату отнеси». Почему о матери ни слова? С другой стороны, с какой стати Мария должна подкармливать опустившуюся ниже плинтуса женщину? Она сама не жировала. Трудилась уборщицей в школе, в которой мы с братом учились. Мама просыпалась очень редко. Но если просыпалась, то устраивала такие дебоши, что соседи не вызывали полицию только из жалости к нам, детям. Просто забирали нас к себе. Там мы и пережидали бурю. «Скорее бы в училище поступить», — шептал про себя Сашка. «Смотреть на этот цирк не могу. Моя бы воля, забрал бы тебя с собой и убежал с тобой, Олеся, куда глаза глядят». «Согласна», — шепчу я в ответ. «Мне тоже не терпится школу закончить и в вуз поступить. Таким, как я, на бюджет можно. Я узнавала у Веры Васильевны». Вера Васильевна — это директор нашей школы. Она в курсе наших проблем, поэтому обещала нам с братом всяческую протекцию в дальнейшем. В итоге Вера Васильевна не подвела. Умеет человек слово держать. Даже направление в учебе подсказала. «Олеся, ты прирожденный математик. Жаль, что с такой сложной судьбой. Я считаю, что ты просто обязана поступить именно на экономический факультет. Это даст тебе в дальнейшем верный кусок хлеба. Уверена, ты станешь прекрасным специалистом». А в то время Саша уже учился в одном из училищ. Форма была ему к лицу. Узнав, что Вера Васильевна мне помогла поступить на бюджет, и мне выделили комнату в общежитии, обрадовался. Все-таки мир не без добрых людей, сестренка. Порой чужие гораздо лучше, чем свои. Мы с братом и мамой находились в одном городе, но у меня было стойкое ощущение, что на разных с ней планетах. Навещать ее мы не ходили, только расстроимся, глядя на весь этот свинарник. Мама тоже не искала поводов нас увидеть. Прожигала жизнь по полной программе. Тетя Маша звонила. «Почему-то не дозвонилась до тебя. Как-то набрал меня Александр. Нужно к матери съездить. Тетя Маша говорит, она вообще там хулиганить начала». В тот же вечер мы отправились навещать маму. А внешний вид у нее был просто ужасный. Какой-то веткий халат, босиком, косматая, неумытая. В комнате стоял запах не то конюшни, не то свинарника. Я тут же кинулась открывать окно, проветрить. «Привезли чего?» С порога набросилась на нас мама. «Душа горит, не могу. Доставай, Сашка, где там у тебя?» «Нет у меня ничего», — строго сказал старший брат. «Мы с Олесей пришли не вредить тебе, а помочь». «А что может быть лучше, чем здоровьица подлечить?» Хрипло рассмеялась мама. «Сашка, не томи, доставай, поросенок». «Мама, тебе нужна помощь специалистов, понимаешь?» Назидательно сказал Александр. «Мы с Олесей хотим отдать тебя в надежные руки специалистов, чтобы они тебе помогли». «Шиш вам с маслом!» — закричала мама, не ведая, что говорит. «Вы просто хотите от меня избавиться. Давно камень за пазухой держите. Мечтаете, мать, с этого света сжить? Не выйдет. Пошли отсюда прочь, демоны!» Мы с Шуриком переглянулись. Очевидно же, что это самая настоящая белочка. Мы не спецы в этом вопросе, но признаки вроде похожи. Мама же накрепко вцепилась в кровать и наотрез отказалась куда-либо с нами идти. Пришлось оставить эту затею с помощью. Тут нахрапом ничего не решишь. Прошло несколько лет. Поведение мамы не изменилось. Сашка получил погоны офицера. Начал проходить службу в местном гарнизоне. Ему дали казенную квартиру недалеко от части. Я с отличием окончила университет. Нашла себе хорошую работу. Вера Васильевна словно в воду глядела. Я действительно начала устраивать свою жизнь как нельзя лучше. Да и Шурик не отставал. Был на хорошем счету у командования. Жила я в небольшой, но очень уютной квартирке. Зарплата позволяла. Про маму вспоминала редко, чтобы настроение себе не портить. Затем позвонил старший брат и сообщил новость. Меня тут тетя Маша в курс дела ввела. Короче говоря, их дом расселяют, как ветхое жилье. Пока с квартирами ничего не ясно. Тетя Маша будет жить у родни за городом. А мама как же? В первый раз за долгое время я вслух произнесла это слово. «Мама». «Тут все печальней», — ответил брат. «Ей деваться совершенно некуда. Придется мне забрать ее к себе». «Она же так себя ведет, Сашка», — произнесла я. «Ты на службе со стыда сгоришь. Давай я ее к себе заберу». «Я все обдумал», — ответил мне брат. «Скажу начальству, что невесту нашел с квартирой. Сам жилье сниму, мать перевезу. Зачем ссор из избы выносить? А ты о себе подумай, Олеся. О своей личной жизни, поняла? Я, между прочим, племянников хочу». Я даже удивилась, насколько великодушен мой брат. Просто берет на себя непосильную ношу. Как говорится, на амбразуру. Я не стала возражать. У Сашки стальной характер. Рявкнет по столу кулаком раз, мама и притихнет, не будет баловать. Какое-то время мы так и жили. В моей жизни случилось знаменательное событие. Я встретила свою половинку. Мы полюбили друг друга. Довольно быстро узаконили свои отношения. А чего тянуть-то? Влад, мой муж, знал о матери, но я особенно не распространялась на ее счет. Супруг тактично не задавал лишних вопросов. Есть на свете какая-то там теща, и пусть. С Сашкой Влад быстро подружился. Но брат тоже не открывал мужу все наши семейные тайны. Прошло около года. Мы сумели накопить на первоначальный взнос за квартиру. Радости нашей не было предела. Особенно ликовал Влад. Меня скоро мастером в цеху сделают. Вообще развернемся, Олеся. Можно будет и о детях подумать. Признаться, мне очень хотелось детей. Подарить им все то, чего была сама лишена в детстве. Поэтому слова мужа меня очень обрадовали. Но, как говорится, человек предполагает, а Бог располагает. Наша жизнь с мужем буквально перевернулась с ног на голову после телефонного звонка Саши. «Дом у тебя просторный, сможешь маму поселить», — заявил мне мой брат. «Саш, что случилось?» — испугалась я. «Почему ты решил избавиться от мамы?» Оказалось, что брата переводят куда-то на Урал. На какой срок никто не в курсе. Он сам ходил к командиру батальона, ходатайствовал о себе. Но военные люди подневольные. Приказ есть приказ. Я со вздохом согласилась. Тем более, что брат довольно долго верой и правдой опекал нашу непутевую мать. Она даже немного преобразилась. Выглядела не так пугающе. Впрочем, у офицера не забалуешь. Это же прекрасно. К моему удивлению, Влад отреагировал на новость очень даже адекватно. «Мама — это же самый главный человек в жизни. Мои старики далеко живут. Знаешь, как я по ним скучаю». Влад сам был из провинциального города. Приехал сюда на учебу, допустил крепкие корни. Со свекрами я виделась всего несколько раз, но они произвели на меня очень приятное впечатление. На следующий день Саша доставил к нам маму со скудным набором вещей. Увидев ее, Влад немного растерялся. Хоть мама вроде бы и завязала со своей пагубной привычкой, но на лице еще осталась маска характерного вида. Муж сразу понял, в чем дело. Он же не лунтик, не вчера родился. «Милости просим. Марина...» Влад запамятовал отчество матери. «Валентиновна», — подсказала я мужу. «Валентиновна», — добавил радостно супруг. «Добро пожаловать в наш дом. Чувствуйте себя как дома». Саша торопился, сказал, что спешит на поезд. Он пожелал нам удачи и ушел. Мы остались с мамой. Влад как мог старался быть весьма гостеприимным хозяином. Он лично накрыл стол, пригласил тещу пообедать. Я думал, что она нездорова, а она... Влад показал мне украдкой специфический жест. Я кивнула головой. Вроде сейчас уже лучше, Саша ей не давал расслабиться. «Отлично, это радостно слышать», — просиял муж. «Когда человек справляется с такой напастью, он достоин только похвалы. Как и в любом доме, у нас с мужем есть небольшой бар, для гостей держим. Разумеется, маме мы ничего о нем не сообщили. Она нашла этот тайничок сама. И не просто его нашла. Она выпила все содержимое. Сорвалась сердечная, понеслась ее душа в рай, как говорится. Там же было на целый ресторан. Удивился Влад, глядя на пустую стеклотару и тещу, что мирно храпела на нашем диване. «Вот это сила! Это не сила, это слабость», — возразила я супругу. Мама в одну и ту же реку дважды вошла. Когда мама выспалась, то тут же начала давать нам самые страшные клятвы, что больше ни-ни, что это был в первый и последний раз. Хорошо, дали ей шанс. Какое-то время мама вела себя тихо и мирно, пока снова не натворила глупостей, да еще каких. «Держите, Марина Валентиновна. Это ключ от нашей квартиры». Вручил матери ключ супруг. «Вы же не пленница. Вы чуть ли не глава семьи, мама. Выходите гулять, дышите свежим воздухом». Мама с благодарностью его приняла. Выпросила немного карманных денег на минералку. Ушла на прогулку. Мы, как ни в чем не бывало, отправились по своим делам. Это было воскресенье. Когда же мы вернулись, то не узнали свою квартиру. Она была похожа на вокзал в старые советские времена. В нашей гостиной сидели какие-то непонятные люди во главе с мамой и угощались мамочкой. Так они любовно называли свой любимый напиток. «Вот она, мамочка, вот она, родимая», — проговорил неопределенного возраста мужчина, грязный, как поросенок. Впрочем, вся эта честная компания выглядела точно так же. Влад побагровел и тумаками выгнал всех этих маргиналов в зашей. Мы повели маму под белые рученьки на кухню, предварительно забрав у нее ключи. «Мама, так дело не пойдет», — проговорила я тихо, но очень внятно. «Мало того, что ты лишила меня и брата детства, ты сейчас все портишь, сил моих больше нет». Влад молчал. Весь его внешний вид говорил, что он полностью со мной согласен. «Мы поступим следующим образом. Помещаем тебя в клинику. Там тебе окажут всю необходимую помощь», — сказала я. «Если же ты не согласна, то тебя никто не держит. Отправляйся к себе в коммуналку, пока ее не снесли. Все в твоих руках». Мама подумала и изрекла тихо одними губами. «Я согласна на помощь. Я сама очень устала, но это выше меня». Мы с мужем навели справки и поместили маму в хороший центр реабилитации. Мама преображается просто на глазах. Это не может не радовать. Мы все очень надеемся, что маме хватит сил выбраться из этого болота. Если так случится, двери нашего дома всегда для нее открыты.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. "Take care." That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.